Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the Treaded Path, the podcast from Kufi Productions, where we explore the inspiring journeys of Muslim professionals across diverse industries. I'm your host, Salman Hasan, and each week we sit down with remarkable individuals who are making their mark in their chosen fields to highlight their successes and challenges in their journey, and also examine corporate accountability with their industry, provide practical resources for aspiring professionals, and offer any actionable advice on career advancement and ethical navigation to those who want to tread their path. So today, I'm honored to be joined by Affaan Saadat and Talha Hafeez. They are the co-founders of Back Pocket AI. Affaan graduated from Michigan State as cum laude and worked
University of
on.
Michigan.
Yep. Oh, sorry. Thank you for the correction.
No problem.
University of Michigan as cum laude and worked on one of the first enterprise AI products at DocuSign. And Talha will be, inshallah, joining Google soon to work on their internal distributed API proxy. But together, though, they came up with a solution using AI to address some of the serious issues related to property management. So before we dive in, let me remind our listeners that you can find the show notes, resources, and ways to connect with our guests in the Treaded Path archive in our website, kofiproductions.com. So with that, Affaan and Talha, assalamu alaikum, and thank you for so much for joining us.
Thank you for having
Alaikum
us.
salam. Thank you for having us.
Of course. So to start us off, could both of you give our audience a brief intro or introduction of who you are, what you do in your current role, and what drew you to property management and AI? And we can start with Affaan, and then Talha, you can go next.
Okay. So my name is Affaan Saadat. Like you said, I graduated from University of Michigan in 2022. And then when I was at Michigan, I interned at Capital One, DocuSign. And then I got a return offer at DocuSign, where I started working there full time for about a year. And then after that, I got moved up to software engineer two to work on launching their AI products. So I worked on things like agreement summary, which is like a GPT generated summary for documents for enterprise customers, and like bulk review with AI. So basically bulk review a lot of documents using AI and extracting relevant fields like effective date, contract expiration date, contract value, those types of things, like extracting those from the document. So I worked as a full stack engineer there, working like closely with like product managers, like defining like doing bug bashes, like figuring out like what the issues were, like seeing how customers were interacting with our product, and like also like making sure regression testing and that stuff was like up in order. So I worked there for like a year and a half, and then I actually quit my job around like September of last year to study Ireland for full time at Miftah Institute to do the 1 year Seekers program, where I studied Hadith, Arabi, علوم القرآن علوم القرآن علوم الحديث, Arba'in Nawawi, a bunch of other. It's a sick program. Miftah is like great place. If you're considering getting Islamic knowledge, go out there. Shout out to them. And then after, like while I was doing that program, I was also very interested in startups. So I was working at DocuSign. I was thinking of making a career pivot anyways around that time, like going into startups and starting my own thing. And initially I was interested in like the trades space, like and contractors, tradespeople, and kind of addressing how when they're working on the job, they're not picking up the phone. They're like so busy, like using their hand that a lot of leads just fall through, and maybe like they're taking like a $200 job when someone just called in about $1,000 job, and like those are lost leads, that's lost revenue. So we were trying to aim for those people first, and then after doing some like customer discovery and talking to them, a lot of their like marketing stuff wasn't built out as well, and it was like a much bigger problem to tackle. And there were also similar players in the space, but I felt like real estate and property management was the field. My dad's a property manager. I had more connections to that space, so I was like, like I think this is the right space to be in. I reached out to Talha around like January of this year through a mutual friend from Michigan, and he was like, honestly, at that point, I don't know if I think he'll explain this. He'll explain his side of the story. But he was just like, "Yo, this sounds kind of cool. I'm not gonna lie. Voice AI had just like got like an 11. Like someone sent me like an 11 Labs demo, and I was like, "Yo, this is insane. Like this is so cool. like this is going to be the future of call centers. This is going to be like how everyone interacts with like, like basic queries and stuff like that. I could see, those like calls that you pick up and it's like, oh, hey, press one to dial like this department, press two to dial
Right.
this department, press three to dial. I was like, people are still using that. This is the future of all of that. And we know those industries are huge. Telecommunications is massive. It's one of the most biggest industries in the world. It's just like we had the technology figured out. We were just struggling to figure out which market does it fit into. You know what I mean? So then I was just like, who do I know the most? I talked to a bunch of contractors, and then I happened to talk to a property manager because I knew a lot of contractors' customers were property managers. People that,
Nice.
hired a lot of contractors were property managers. One of my friends was one. He said, "Oh, hey, this is pretty cool. Come show me a demo." And then we've just been working since there. Sorry, that's a whole lot of yap, but that's kind of how we got to where we are today.
Yeah, I'll just introduce myself real quick. My name is Talha. I also graduated from University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, December 2024. So very recently, it's been almost a year now. Um, I interned I did two internships at a B2B SaaS company. That company is called Olo. They're in the restaurant tech space. They just got acquired by a firm under Berkshire Hathaway. So learned a lot there. Mainly worked on back-end API systems there. Right after graduating, I interviewed with Splunk, and I currently work at Splunk. It was actually around that time where a friend of mine, me and Affaan's mutual friend, reached out to me and said, "Hey, since you don't have a job, why don't you work with Affaan?" And I know Affaan said I thought it was cool. At the time, he had like some really crappy website, and I didn't have a
Wow,
job, and
man.
I just said that okay, like it's better than nothing. So I just hit him up. I made the commitment, and I stuck with it because I had to honor my commitment, not because I was interested. But now I'm interested. So yeah, and then we currently work at Splunk, and like Salman mentioned, I'll be joining Google about a month, working on more APIs and distributed systems there. And yeah, I think Affaan really took it away with the story. But yeah, I mean, we really got into the space. I'm a tech guy through and through. Like I just love the fact of building the thing, designing the thing, solving the problems, doing all of that stuff. I told Affaan from the beginning, like, I don't want to do sales. You're doing the sales. so I did all of the technical work and stuff. I've really been enjoying it. I spend most of my day just doing that outside of work. And yeah.
Well, no, that's great. These are great stories, and I'm sure people in the tech space can relate to some of what you guys have been treading on and been experienced in. But let's take our listeners back to the beginning. And so, I know you guys mentioned a little bit about your educational journey, right? If you guys don't mind, just start off by saying, what exactly did you study, and what drew you to that field of study? And
Yeah,
Talha,
so
or sorry, go ahead.
actually, let's go with Talha this time.
Okay.
All right, Talha, go ahead.
Sure. Um, yeah, so I mean, a very traditional path for school for me. I mean, I'm a Pakistani guy. Like, I just did school, you know. So,
Sure.
public school. Went to university. Um, I was in Ann Arbor all 4 years, and there I studied computer science. So I was CS for my first year during COVID, which was a whole other story. And then I switched to computer engineering, which I think is objectively more difficult. Uh, and I just didn't want to do the work, so I switched back to CS, and then I finished my degree in CS. Yeah, that's pretty much what I studied. I did my internships. I followed although I was very blessed to follow a very standard path through school and didn't struggle much. Um,
So when I was like a kid, my parents put me in a madrasa for like 5 years from the ages of like 6 to like 10, 11. And back then, I wasn't the best kid in madrasa either. It was just like I was just like do whatever, like I just could not focus. Basically, I was not one of those kids that sat still. I was very hyper, very like energetic. And then that also carried into like school and stuff like that. I was always very talkative, like always the most talkative person in class and stuff like that. So then after that, I was really into tech. Always I was into tech. Like I was into, for example, like like messing around with random websites, like doing like fixing random things in the house, setting up Wi-Fi for the house. Like, well, my iPod would like break because I was playing outside, and then I would like open it up and then fix all this the screen and stuff like that. And educationally, I was in high school and I was actually pre-med for the longest time. I like shadowed like like a cardiologist, a cardiac surgeon. Yeah, he was a heart surgeon, when I was like in high school, and then when I went to undergrad, I was like pre-med, but also like I took CS classes because like my older brother is also CS, and I saw he also worked at Google like before. And then like I knew that that was a safe path, and I was always into tech. Actually, he was supposed to be the doctor, I was supposed to be the engineer, and I always told him like, "Yo, you took like my whole flow, bro." And then but then luckily I was able to switch over to CS. I went to University of Michigan Dearborn because I was always like running around the place. I didn't have the best grades in high school, but then when I went to Dearborn, I like got like a straight 4.0 because I was like, yo, like I need to do CS. It has to be at Michigan. So then got a 4.0 at like at Dearborn, transferred over to Michigan my sophomore year, and then also wasn't like crazy good at school there either, but like like I was like really good at the talking part. So like internships and stuff, like I was always at recruiting fairs. Like I can't for the Capital One internship, the reason I got it was because I was at like three of the events for pizza, and I was just yapping to people, and I happened to yap to the head recruiter, and she was like, "If you come in for an interview tomorrow, like, are you going to be available tomorrow morning, 10 a.m.?" And then I was like, "Yeah, sure, absolutely." And then like she called me that night. She's like, "Yo, come to 10 like 8 a.m. tomorrow morning," something like that. And then I just pulled up, did the interview, somehow got the offer. And then since then, once you get your first, it starts rolling. So education, very much for me, it's like if I'm not interested in a subject, I probably cannot do it. Like it's like straight up like I'm like, oh, I'm not like I'm just not interested. Like I don't know, something's up with my brain where it's like if you try to get me to sit still and do something, it won't work. But like that's also one of the reasons I wanted to get into startups was because I feel like that like feeling of oh, I want to work on this. And I think that that's not something that's emphasized in Muslim environments as much, where like a lot of like traditional Muslim environments are like go to school, get your grades, and then like your grades will like drive your results versus like there's not much of that like oh hey follow like if you have an idea follow it, you know what I mean, just let it like follow it and see what happens. We're seeing how that works out, and inshallah khair, it works out well. But,
So far, it looks like it's working out well. So, alhamdulillah. So, so Affan, tell me, like after graduation, right? Explain to the audience a little bit, like the first steps, I guess, into the stepping into like the professional world, if you will, right? Like, what were some of the early influences that kind of led you to where you are now?
really, I had really good mentors at DocuSign. Honestly, I had really good mentors at DocuSign. They were like people that would explain, like take the time out, like senior engineers that would take the time out to explain concepts because DocuSign has a very large code base, and it's like one of the old like it's like it was people think DocuSign is new. It was made in like 2000. Like people are like, why is DocuSign still around? It was one of the first internet companies. Like when you make the internet, then you're just like, oh hey, I want to sign something on it. You know what I mean? Like, what's the biggest thing that communication things do is they sign deals. Let's make an e-signature platform. So they've been around forever, and so there's a lot of legacy code and stuff like that, and that stuff like if you're a new grad engineer, like it's very daunting because it was like the tech stack was like C sharp, React, and I had really good mentors that like in my internship as well as like my full-time role where they would like walk me through like oh hey like this is how this works, like drawing out things, point me to the right resources. This is before AI, so there would have to be like a subject matter expert that would like walk you through things. So that mentorship is something that I really appreciated back then, and now I try to like do that type of stuff like now. And I think Talha can also relate to this aspect of mentorship because I think that's something that we both share, that we like very passionate about. Like we've learned the things that we know because people were nice to us. Now we kind of want to be nice to other people, so that's just how it works. Yeah.
And what about you, Talha? What were your early steps look like after Michigan?
Yeah, I'd say I'm still in those early steps, so I can't give much of a more detailed answer than like Affaan did, because I've only been working for professionally for about 4 months. But I will say a lot of the stuff was the same for me. My current job was pretty slow. Um, I joined at a pretty awkward time where the kind of quarter was ending and the project that I was assigned to was kind of wrapping up. And when you're a new grad, they don't expect much of you. And I found that whenever I worked anywhere, internships or my current job, my expectation or standard for me was much higher than what my boss or my coworkers had. I remember the first day I joined, first week I joined, I got in a call with one of the senior engineers who's been, he knows Splunk inside out. Like he's been working there for 10 years. He's a Russian guy. The Russians are like C++ wizards. They're just known for that. So I get on a call with this guy. He has this really thick accent, very nice guy. And he sits down. He's like, starts teaching me about authorization because that's what I work on at Splunk. And because I was bored, I had already looked all of it up and researched and understood the architecture. So I just started saying it to him, and he was like, "Oh, I did not expect that." Um, so I'm more of sort of like I'll figure stuff out myself. I think mentorship is important to me as well. I had really good mentors in my internships that taught me so much. Remember, I went into school. So first internship was after the summer between my sophomore year and my junior year, and I knew absolutely nothing my sophomore year. And by the beginning of my junior year, I felt like I knew everything. These my the practical experience just made everything click. Like I just had started understanding everything. The classes I took after were a breeze. And since then, yeah, honestly, like I've just felt very confident because of the managers I had and the sort of TLs and the team leads I worked with. But yeah, I'm just starting. There's much more to my experience, inshallah.
Inshallah. No, of course, absolutely, and 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 I think each of you are right in the sense that, um, like every career has defining moments, right? Like the opportunities, the challenges, decisions. Having that includes having the right people in your journey, right, to kind of shape the path forward. So, Talha, can you share one or maybe two pivotal moments in your journey thus far that kind of um, shaped that journey for you so far?
I'd say the biggest one for me is actually when I was a kid. My uncle is a I don't know his exact title, senior principal of data AI something at MasterCard. He's very tenured. He's been in this field for a long time, and I always looked up to him. And I remember when I was a kid, I used to sit and watch him. He used to do consulting for websites, and he would build websites. This was in like probably before 2010, and I would just sit there and watch him. And I remember there was this guy he used to work with. He was from Sri Lanka. His name was Asanka Butiju, and we just had this joke about Asanka Butiju. Like he would just say his name, and so that's just my memory of like where I started loving tech and CS. And kind of like how Affaan said, I would always play games when I was little. I play Minecraft a lot when I was little, and you can like texture packs, resource packs, or you can change the way the game looks. I would just sit there, go through my file explorer, and figure out how to do it, and then I would just do it. So I'd say my turning points were more like when I was a kid. What kind of set me on
Gotcha.
this path of doing tech. Um,
Makes sense.
I,
Yeah.
I would say another one right now would kind of be like what we're doing right now. Um, it's kind of completely changed my mentality on doing stuff. I always saw myself as the just get a job type person. Um, Not like, I always thought like, oh, I would do business and go into business, but I didn't know how. It was just kind of my family would be like, oh, do an MBA, go into business, kind of float in and just be like a PM. But doing the sort of stuff we're doing now, where you talk to people, you try solve their problem, you manage things in production, it's way more fun than I ever thought it would be. So I'd say I'm kind of living the turning point right now, and hopefully, inshallah, it only goes up from here.
That's wonderful. What about you, Affan? What were
Honestly,
your
like he's like absolutely right. Like honestly, when I was like an undergrad, I was always thinking like I'll get a job and yeah, like honestly, to be honest, I kind of was like lamenting the idea of doing software engineering for the rest of my life because like I'm a little bit too much of a yapper to be like stuck behind a screen a little bit. And I was always thinking like, oh man, I wish I could like talk to people. I wish I could talk to customers, anyone kind of thing. Like even at DocuSign, I used to like go around like the floors and then talk to sales, talk to product, talk to like, and like, oh hey, what are you guys up to? Like, what are you guys working on? Like the guy that's like always kind of like walking around and talking to random people. That was kind of me. And then like and like I think that's like back then that was like the only way to consolidate knowledge really is just like, oh hey, what are people like I used to go to like sales, just be like, oh hey, like we're working on this thing. I was like, oh dang, I haven't talked to an engineer in so long. The heck are you guys up to? Like, I was like, oh yeah, we're working on this thing. Like, oh wow, that's so cool. I have a client that would love to use you. I was like, oh man, you guys didn't know we're in the same company. And then, so like I forgot, like I lost my train of thought, but basically like I wanted to transition into business as well. And I was thinking MBA, exact same thing, like get an MBA and then do it. And then looked at the prices and I was like, yo, $1,000, I could fail 10 businesses with $100,000. Like I could genuinely fail like 10. And then I was like, yep, I'm gonna start failing 10 businesses. Then I started failing businesses. Every time I like comes to like, oh hey, should I like pay for the service or something. I'm like, it's cheaper than an MBA.
It's a
And
good
I'm
way of
like,
looking at it.
yeah, like people are going into debt to learn the things that you could just fail at. Like publicly, you could just text someone and be like, "Hey, dude, can we solve this for you?" Like for my family also owns a coffee shop actually in Michigan. It's called Talha Cafe, and we've been selling. My dad's like always had like side projects. He's always been in business. He used to have one of those like barter stores where he'd like or like those small trinket stores where he'd sell like lights and stuff like that. I
Right.
would go with him.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And and then what else was there? He then we started doing kulfi. We started like, selling like kulfi, like homemade kulfi, and a lot of people liked it. And we've been doing it for like 10 years now. And then we just opened up an actual shop. And then we added faluda, we added like milkshakes, we added like a couple of these things. And then being part of that, like branding, my dad also like does like real estate and property management, like on the side too. Like he manages a couple properties. So then like my dad's a beast. Like honestly, the work ethic genuinely comes from my parents. My mom's also like a PhD and like MD, PhD. She's like insanely smart. So that those are like really good goes back to that really good role model thing, where it's like I've seen them create like things like that, and I'm like, yo, there's yeah. So business, I was like with marketing, Takat Cafe, and come like putting together a product and shipping it to the end customer on a smaller scale. It's like the same thing as if you were going to do it with software. It's like on the back end, you have a product team, you have a marketing team, you have someone that does the sales, and you just have to make it so that it fulfills like something that the person wants. And in Gulfi, it's like, oh, hey, someone wants a nice treat to have on a hot summer day, and like that's what they're looking for. They're looking for a little bit of fun, somewhere to take the kids. Like that's what you're aiming for. With software for this one, it's like enterprise clients, for example, like real estate agents and property managers. Like they can't answer all the calls they get. They can't like tend to every tenant with the amount of detail that they would like to. So they resort to automated messages. They resort to like very impersonal interactions, and I think it causes a lot of uh, it causes a lot of friction between like the client and property manager like relationship. Like if that relationship was more like personal, which large language models and AI has the ability to do now, with voice AI sounding as human as it does, and like text sounding, and we can train it to sound more like the property manager and like handle those things. I think some of that friction could be alleviated, and maybe we wouldn't have like, and we if we could do it at scale, for example, like a whole apartment building, and everyone feels like their needs are catered to. That is like the ideal situation for one of our customers. I don't know how I
No,
got there. I'm so sorry.
no, that's wonderful.
I'm so sorry.
It's all part of the journey, right? Like you're sharing your experiences and how it all leads up to businesses that you guys are both involved in, right? And the kind of clients that you work with. So that's wonderful to hear. So we're going to shift gears just a little bit, and one of the things we will explore on this Tread a Path podcast is how faith our faith intersects with our professional lives. So the first question here is, how does being Muslim influence the way you approach your work? And Talha, maybe you can take this question right
This
now.
is my favorite topic. I'm very passionate about this topic. Um, how does being Muslim affect my professional life? I I'm gonna start by talking about something that kind of peeves me a lot, and I think that will inform kind of my answer. Um, I was actually listening to a lecture yesterday about how the Quran talks about the global economy, and it was a lecture that Noman Khan did from Bain Institute, and he's talking about all the different ayat that are talking about rizq. And we always think of like spiritual rizq, right? Which is like, oh, hidayah, like guidance, and the fact that you pray, that Allah allows you to pray, Allah allows you to make dua, excuse me. um, but a lot of people kind of just take the Quran as just spiritual, and they forget that it applies to everything. So what they've done is they've secularized the Quran, but on the spiritual side instead of the dunyawi side. And that really bothers me because people like they don't really. I've seen a pattern where people will just not care about like where they work, how they earn their money, whether or not they're consuming interest, giving out loans with interest, like that in general. Really makes me upset. And so I personally make sure that every single thing I'm trying to do, um, you know, by Allah's permission, is in line with the Quran and the Sunnah. So it means everything to me, right? Like when I'm working, how you treat people, the way you talk in meetings too, like it makes a huge difference when people can tell you're Muslim. Funny story, actually, the first day I walked into the office, um, it's always like, as you know, as a guy, it's like you walk in and you have to shake people's hands, right? It's always so awkward when there's a non-mahram woman there, obviously like your
Right.
coworker,
Right.
and you're just kind of like, it's very awkward, and sometimes
Yeah.
sometimes you'll slip just because of like it's just pressure, right? But there's this coworker, and she puts her hand out because I just shook my manager's hand, the guy's next to me, and then I just went like this after, and she's just standing there like this with her hand out, and I was like, oh, I'm so sorry, I don't shake hands after I shook two other people's hands. So I'm sitting there, and she's just like, sorry, because she didn't hear me, and it was just really awkward, right? But if that's the price you have to pay, it's the price you have to pay, right? um these people don't forget, and even if they don't, okay, either they think you're weird, so what, they forget about it, well, that's great, or they become curious. um I remember, because of that, like, my manager took us out to eat somewhere, and it was a Mediterranean place, and I had to figure it was like an odd place, like probably halal. Let me just ask. Even though it's I live in Colorado right now, and in Boulder, Colorado, there's not much like halal stuff. I asked anyways, and they said there was. My manager heard me. A few weeks later, his boss was in town, and we were going out to dinner, and our whole team was deciding where should we go and eat. And I grew up in America. Like, I'm so used to not and around non-Muslims. All my public school, everything, all my friends were non-Muslim. I was always used to not doing what they did. Like, even if I go with them, not eating the food they eat, whatever. So I just didn't say anything. And my manager's like, maybe we should go somewhere that has halal food. And then I was just like, I was so shocked. So point being, like, if you just practice the deen, right? Like, if you just practice in every way possible, people will start picking up on this stuff. My manager invited me to a barbecue, and he went and he bought halal meat for me. I didn't go, but he bought halal meat for me. He had the intention to. I couldn't go, unfortunately, but yeah. I mean, it's like it's. I don't know how to put into words, honestly. Like, it's more important than anything, right? Like, if
Right.
we're gonna be asked about what we do on Yom Al Qiyamah, it's this is one of those things, right? It doesn't mean you don't work. It doesn't mean you don't go and earn. You still go doing all these things, but all of these are obviously, like we all know, they're all forms of worship. If you're working fi sabilillah, if you're earning fi sabilillah, yeah.
No, that's great. I'm so glad you found different ways to incorporate acts of worship into your work days. You've shared some specific examples. I'm curious, Affaan, maybe you can answer this question: how can one maintain that kind of spiritual connection where when work gets really busy or during busy periods of time? 'Cause sometimes that gets challenging, right? Like you're in back-to-back meetings for 4 hours straight, um and time's running out for Dhuhr Salah, for example, right? How would you go about trying to maintain that spiritual connection while at work?
Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put the five salahs for a reason. You know what I mean? Like there's a reason that Zuhr Salah is prayed in the middle, like Zuhr Salah is prayed in the middle of the workday, and Asr Salah is prayed in the middle of the work, like usually sometimes like work. And there's also a reason why they're silent salahs. One of my teachers was like explaining this to us. Like during the daytime, we're like always talking, we're always talking, we're always talking, and like we're doing business or you're doing something. And the reason that those salahs are quiet is because it gives you a second after talking all the time to like slow down and like reflect on what you've done that day. Like, what are you working on? Kind of recenter yourself. Like, why are you doing the things that you do? And then at nighttime, when everything is quiet, read out loud to like, like balance that out. You know what I mean? Balance that out. At nighttime, we're loud. And so specifically the work time period, I think that I want to focus on that part where how important it is, like during the workday, everyone feels like that brain fog halfway through the day. It's just like a wisdom, but it's not like I'm not saying like this like a hadith or anything like that. It's just a wisdom. Everyone experiences that brain fog and gets like overstimulated halfway through the day where they feel like, oh, everything's hitting them. They have like meetings, then they have another meeting, and they have another meeting. Taking that time out to stop and then realign yourself and know why are you doing everything. it can like clarify what you need to do next. Like halfway through the day, you can like, oh hey, what do I actually need to do by the end of this day? What do I actually need to get done? What is actually going to be beneficial for me? And those like 5-10 minutes, like that's what they're there for. That's literally the purpose of those, is that you need to like, you just align yourself back to like the Surat al-Mustaqim. You know, I'm walking the path, like the proper path. Nothing I'm doing is haram. Sahabas worked. Everyone thinks that like if you're a Muslim, like that all they did was like sit in the masjid and like read Quran all day. Like no, all the Sahabas work. Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu used to have a trade partner, or one day he would spend like the day with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and like study from him, and then he would switch off with his trade partner, and then he would learn everything. Then he would learn, and then they would like exchange notes every single day. Like they had schedules, they had businesses. Like there's numerous Sahabas, they all had businesses, they were businessmen, they're hardworking, they were like they ran the whole trade routes in Saudi Arabia. Like they were praying throughout like that entire period. And one of the reasons that like Islam spread the way it does, one of the like I heard this really interesting thing like recently, that one of the reasons Islam spread to places like South Asia was because of the way that Muslims used to do business and those trade routes. They were like, oh, these really honest businessmen from Saudi Arabia, like they come here and they like do really good business. Like, why are they doing all that? They ask them, what do you do? They're like, oh, we're Muslim. We like do this. We believe in this. We believe in the last day. We hold ourselves accountable. We know that on the last day, all of our transactions are going to be laid bare, and then we're going to have to answer for everything that we did. And then that's one of the reasons Islam spread. So like that same technique that happened back then, things like how Talha said, like once you have your coworker can like get suspicious, but they can get really curious. Like if someone's operating in a way that's like, yo, this guy's doing something right. I don't know what it is. This guy's doing something right. It's like,
Right.
dude, like they're like curious, and like they might just want to be like you. Like it's one of the ways Islam spread. People think that business is just to make money, but people forget that like there's a whole chapter in fiqh in Babul Buyur. Like there's a whole chapter in fiqh about like financial transactions. And people think of it as like, oh, there's just rules I need to get around and stuff like that. I'm like, no, you operate like that, people are going to respect you for it. It's like people are going to be like, oh, this guy does upright business. You know what I mean? Versus like, like, and also like the American legal code pulls from like most like fiqh, like straight up from Islamic law, Islamic jurisprudence. The American legal system, like, aligns very closely with it. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I feel like if you follow Islamic law, it's very low chance that you actually like get in trouble with the American law. But yeah.
No, I'm so glad you mentioned all this because you're right. Absolutely. There are all these common misconceptions about in the workplace or Muslims conducting business or, running their own business, right? Can you guys name some examples in your personal experience that you've come across when it comes to addressing the misconceptions in the professional setting or even a personal setting? Any examples come to mind?
Yeah, I can start with this. Um, that dinner I went on with my boss's boss, we started talking about he has a adopted daughter who's Syrian. And I've lived with one of my really good friends who I lived with my junior year is from Halab. He's from Aleppo. So I learned a lot about Syria. There's a lot of Syrian guys up in Flint, Michigan. Um, so I just started telling him like, oh, I used to live with a Syrian, like all this stuff. We eventually started talking about language, and from language we got to like how Arabic is a very beautiful poetic language. That's what he said. And then he asked me, what do I speak? And I told him Urdu, and I said Urdu is a sister language to Farsi, and it's kind of like you have Arabic, Farsi. Those are the main like academic languages, right?
Right. Yeah.
Um, and from there, eventually we got to the Quran. I don't know how, but I brought it there somehow. Every Muslim, like I feel like ends up just when they're talking to a non-Muslim. At least I've always operated like this. I always have to throw in like a like
That's
something to do. Oh, the
wonderful.
the Quran is true,
That's wonderful, man.
I don't know. It's just like I don't want to say it's just a habit, I guess. Like I always try, like it just enters the conversation. So it just entered the conversation, and then they're just sitting there, and it's hard to read them. You can't tell if they're like, oh wow, he's onto something, um, or if they're just like, oh, like this guy's crazy, but like I'm just gonna be nice. Like I said, it doesn't really matter what they think because you know the fact is you plant the seed, right? So like me not shaking somebody's hand, it could plant the seed, or it could, you know, they just don't care. And at that point, it's like, what can you do? You kind of did your part, right? So if I get a chance to explain, I get to explain because there's so many misconceptions and rumors, as we all know. I'm not going to go into that because we live it, right?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, as long as you try and talk about what you believe in, like there's no shame in it. You know, this is not. I think people say like, oh, it's hard to practice Islam in America, but I don't know. Like, is it? Like, I mean, we get to pray every day. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, people who pray are being bombed. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're not getting bombed, and I'll be in like the middle of the parking lot praying on a road trip with my friend. No, nothing happened. I mean, that's from Allah. It's protection from Allah, right? But it's not an excuse to hide or say like, um, I'm just gonna shake this woman's hand because it's not a big deal. I mean, there's a hadith about the man who touches a non-mahram woman's hand that Affaan, you may have heard of this, but something about it's worse than touching like a hot iron rod or something. It's like why do we sacrifice on stuff like that? It's not worth it, right? Just stand up for what you believe in. And from a dunyawi perspective, people respect that, because people don't stand up for anything anymore. Like someone will say, "I stand for this," and then the next thing you know, they're funded by a certain party that is exactly the opposite of what they stand for. So you kind of have to put your money where your mouth is, right? Like if you're gonna
Right.
say I'm Muslim, and you're walking around like dapping up girls, it's like I'm not saying I'm not doing like takfir or anything. Right? I'm not saying like you're not Muslim, right? We all have our shortcomings. Don't get me wrong. Don't take what I'm saying the wrong way. But it's like encouragement, right? Like you should be proud of what we believe in, and it's always these small things, right? Allah loves the small, consistent things. It's like those small, consistent good deeds are very big to Him, and the small, consistent bad deeds are also big to Him. Yeah, we just gotta be proud, man. We're Muslim for a reason.
No, for sure, absolutely, and thank you for sharing all of that.
I wanted
And
to
yeah,
say one thing
please.
about what like he said, like really, like what are you giving up? Like not shaking that girl's hand. Like what are you like giving up, or like not praying? Like when a lot of like in America, it's so religiously tolerant. Like they have like reflection rooms. You go to the reflection room, the only thing there is a janamaz, because the only
Yeah,
people that like pray is like a sajada basically. It's like the only people that pray are like Muslims, and like they have like religious tolerance. They like let you take time off. Like on Fridays, I've never had a problem like taking an hour off on Fridays, like taking a religious holiday off. You have religious holidays like your own free day. Like I feel like it's easier to practice Islam in some ways. Like physically, it's easier to practice Islam in America, but like socially, psychologically, it's harder because everyone else is like doing so much like
That's
other
a good
stuff.
point. That's a good point.
You know,
yeah.
so I
Just
don't.
one more thing. I just want to correct something I said. I know I said it's like easy. I'm not saying it's easy to practice, right?
Oh
My
yeah,
my point was like also for like me and Afan, like we don't necessarily look Muslim. You know what I mean? Like Afan's got a big beard. He probably looks more Muslim than me. But like, but like me, like I could just be a brown guy. You know what I mean? So for people like for our sisters, they're visibly Muslim. So I don't know what that experience is. So it's definitely much more difficult for them, right? I just wanted to make that clear, and I didn't want to put a blanket. Oh, it's easy, guys. What are you doing? I don't want to. That's not what I'm saying.
on on that exact point, I think it's actually like really important that we do look visually Muslim. Like I do think that like
It's
a
a
lot of
form
the
of dawah.
times,
Yeah,
not just a form of dawah, in the sense that like our sisters are visibly Muslim every single day. Like
what we
they
see.
they have they have to be visibly Muslim every single day versus we can just, I don't know, like
Can get
there's
away
so
with it.
many art. Yeah, like we can actually like, oh, he might be Indian, or he might just have the beard for style points. You know what I mean? Like I think that there are like like sha'air of Islam that I think slowly just like "Buhu biqawmin fahuwa minhum." It's like whoever like looks like a nation, he is one of them. That's a hadith. Whoever like, so if we like just blend in, like how can we say that we're any different than anyone else, like visually, versus our sisters stand out. Like they stand out like sore thumbs wherever they go. Like they have to deal with like,
So
things like,
it's a matter of
yeah,
like pride in what you believe in, right? Kind of.
yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, like
Yeah,
people rock
you
like
gotta represent. Yeah,
I
represent.
represent. People rock like crazy things. Like I'm rocking a Detroit Pistons jersey, bro. I don't think we've won anything in years, bro. Like, yeah.
No, no. That's actually a really good point because um, we're spending majority of our lives in our profession, in our work, right, in the workplaces and people we have our dealings with. So it's very important to not only practice but also look the part as well, right? Especially, and we'll talk about this later in our in the interview about the ethics, right, and accountability. But being proud of like who you are as a Muslim is really important. But before getting into the ethics of the discussion, let's pivot quickly to the industry that you guys are in right now. And so we'll start off with the current role and maybe some of the responsibilities. If either of you want to start with, walking us through a typical day or week in your current position. What does that look like? And
I
maybe
think I can
Talha.
start because
Yeah.
Affaan, Affaan is currently unemployed. Is currently being an entrepreneur. My day in work is log on, stand up. I mean, stand up is not like stand up. Like stand up is
meetings.
yeah, stand up is a
Yes.
meeting. Stand up is like a
Yes.
daily check-in meeting. I do that meeting, and then I start cooking. I get bored. I start cooking. I'll do a little bit of work. More meetings. It's a very standard day. I wouldn't say
So
there's anything glaring about
you
it.
work from home basically. It's like
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
a
I go
remote
into the
work.
office a couple days a week, so because I'm hybrid. Um, so if I'm going to the office, I'll go to the office. Pretty much do the same thing there. Talk to some people, do my work. I don't really have crazy interesting work right now because I did just start, so nothing crazy special about that. But outside of that, for our startup, it's sit and just grind. Like I kind of just sit there and then I just watch YouTube videos on what I'm trying to learn for whatever new tech there is, or I mean it's a new space, right? There's so much I haven't learned yet. So most of my day just goes it's spent in that, trying to learn, just do my job, survive, make food. It's pretty much it, yeah.
Nice. And Affaan, would you say that's similar or completely different in
Yeah,
terms of?
so
Yeah.
during the summer, funnily enough, like until recently, I was actually looking for a job, like just to work full time. But then all the people I was interviewing with, I would talk about my startup. They were kind of like, "Oh, hey, like, why aren't you working on your startup full time? Like, you have a good idea. It seems like you have a product. You like, you have like some early traction. Like, you should probably keep working on it." So, so I stopped interviewing with companies around that time because they were straight up like, "Hey, like, if you're gonna keep working on this thing, what happens if it succeeds? Then like you're probably gonna leave us. You know what I mean?" So it was just like a
Right.
little bit of a, so so then I made the decision to kind of like go full time on this. And also, I decided to do the second year of like Miftah's Alimiya program. After the Seekers program, they have a second year, and it's like from 8 to 1, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. So I basically wake up like, like 7 a.m., 6 a.m., like 6:30 a.m., pray Fajr with all my classmates and stuff like that. And then after that, we like do some like studies for our classes. Then 8 a.m., like I'm in class, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m., we're in class. And then 1 p.m. to like 2 p.m. I eat a little bit, and then about 2 p.m. to like 8 p.m. is when I'm working on this. That's usually when like I'm talking to customers, I'm like reaching out, replying to customers, taking like customer calls, figuring out like what's stopping them from signing, what are their issues, like, getting on client calls, talking to like honestly whatever it takes. Like if I hear that there's a real estate agent that someone knows, I'll like text my friend like, "Yo, do you have a link to this guy?" And then like get like a friendly introduction and stuff because so like all the customer stuff, building out like explanations, pitch decks, like texting like copy that makes sense for the customer to understand what we're trying to do for them, and like communicating with clients and all that. That's kind of my job responsibilities. Like that was our agreement that I handle all
Yeah.
of that
Yeah.
stuff, and Talha just has to focus on coding. Because to be honest, like I like coding, but like I feel like this stuff is so interesting to me. I'm very much like I really like understanding the human element of software, human computer interaction. How do people use software to like communicate with people, to understand other people? How does technology help us, like, because ultimately network internetwork, like it was meant to be a communication device. People forget that it was supposed to connect people to other people. And I think the best apps do this very well. They connect people to other people. Like social media is one of the primary uses of technology, and it's because it connects people to other people. You know what I mean? So, like, understanding the psychology behind that was always very interesting to me. I was almost a psych major as well with CS, but I was in the wrong college. I was College of Engineering. It was very difficult. So that's why this stuff's very interesting to me. And then after my 2 to 8, where I'm like trying to figure out some way to like get someone to like, and then like marketing, like posting on LinkedIn, like trying to create new pieces of content to like attract customers in to explain our like problem statement better, stuff like that. So a lot of product from marketing, sales, all that stuff. I've never done that stuff like formally besides like at Takhat, which is also pretty like new, but it's a lot of fun. And then from 8 to like 12, I'm like studying again, like studying Arabic, studying like Hadith, studying like usul al-fiqh, stuff like that. And honestly, like my classes started like 3 weeks ago. I'm having so much fun in both. Like it's honestly from like the blessing of Allah that I'm able to like even have the opportunity to do this. To be honest, like the money, like even if like we lose money for a little bit, I'm like kind of good with it because I'm just having so much fun learning and doing all this stuff right now. It's really a blessing from Allah to be able to do all of that.
Allah, mashallah. I can definitely say a lot of people would want to be in your shoes, right? Mashallah, you're learning the deen and taking the time to take classes and going to halakas and um and having that time to do so while at the same time working towards like a product or solution for an industry that you're in right now. So um no, alhamdulillah, that's wonderful. So let's talk about, property management, AI, in that industry broadly speaking. So how has it evolved, over the years and since you guys started with Back Pocket? Kind of tell us the story about that.
This is an Affaan question. I have absolutely no idea.
Yeah. So property management as a whole is like a very large scale industry. Like there are large like companies that specifically there's people that own the buildings and then there's the people that manage the buildings. So the people that manage the buildings are the ones doing all the operation stuff. You know what I mean? So like people think, oh, like real estate, he must have a lot of money and stuff like that. Like, they just like, deal with large amounts of money. But the day-to-day operations of property managers really involve like, oh, this tenant's complaining about like a pipe leak or something like that. We need to go fix it. This guy's moving out right now. We need to grab the keys from him, move it to somewhere else. Like this tenant's asking like, oh, what time is the pool open or so, like let's say in these large apartment buildings, they're like, what time is the pool open until? Like what are like your move out policies? What's the trash policy? What's like, you know what I mean? What's like the late notice fee and stuff like that, like all of this stuff. Funnily enough, when I was at DocuSign, the people that used to tell me, "Oh, hey, we use you guys," like like how people get recognized, like you work at Google. It's like everyone's like, "Oh my God, Google!" Like yes, like I use that all the time. The people that used to be like, "Yo, we use you," is like real estate and property managers because they sign agreements, they sign move outs, they sign like leases, like all that stuff. So there's
Right.
a lot of these day-to-day operations that we forget is done by technology. So before it was like a manual process. Like someone used to literally come to your door and be like, "Hey, here's your like come tour the apartment." Someone picks up the phone, schedules a tour, and then says, "Oh, hey, come to the apartment at this time." And then like and we'll like show you the apartment. Here are the amenities. Here's all of this. And if you forget something, you're gonna have to go to the management office and ask them, "Hey, do you know where I put my check in?" or something like that. A lot of this stuff has been automated already by property management companies like Buildium, Entrata, a couple of these companies like do a lot of this stuff like electronically, but they're all very static. They're all very much like copy pasted messages. Like, oh hey, like this is the move out. Everyone gets the same move out text, and like everyone gets the same like, oh hey, are you planning on renewing? Are you planning on doing like this and that? When it comes to like policies, for example, like what are building policies, what are move out policies, what are like all of these different things, it's like you'd have to read through large amounts of text. Even for like a lease contract, you don't really know the contents of your lease contract because like you just need a place to stay, take it, like you don't know anything about like a 30-day move out notice. Like a lot of new grads are going to notice like a 30-day move out notice, stuff like that. You don't know things like, and this is like large amounts of money. If someone like moves out a month later than they were supposed to, like that's like a $2,000. It's called there's a term for it. It's called a
It's like a fee of some kind, right? Like, or a penalty.
yeah. There's like a specific name for like juvenile. Like Delinquency, yeah, delinquency. It's called delinquency, basically. Like,
Like I said,
if you,
juvenile.
Juvenile delinquency.
yeah, but, like, but basically, like it's called a delinquency. Like this guy moved out late or something like that. That's like $2,000 that are out of the out of the pockets of that property manager. Let's say, for example, someone texts the property manager and he doesn't respond to that text immediately, and he goes with a different apartment, and he's not able to book it for another month. That's another like $2,000 loss. And then after that, like let's say he's answering a customer in like an existing tenant comes in and asks about the pool hours, and he misses an email from someone about like, I don't know, like can I want to move in ASAP or something like that, and then he finds another apartment.
Right.
So, and then craziest thing that I heard was that there was a leasing agent in Chicago he was telling me about how basically there was a guy from Pakistan who saw an apartment online on like apartments.com, sent the lead. He responded to him in the morning at like 2 a.m. He responded to him in the morning. He said, "Oh, I just applied online. I just applied online. Didn't even see the apartment." And he's like, "I just applied online to some other place."
Without any fact checking or research.
Like, no, he like went through like the visual, like the 3D models and stuff like that, like
Okay.
those 3D tours. So people are online shopping leases. People are online
Wow.
shopping apartments. And Zillow knows this, apartments.com knows this. There's a couple other like places that understand that. And we think that like online shopping is restricted to small things. No, people are doing really big transactions online now. And so, really maximizing every single online interaction as we get more and more digital, the ideal use case is that the property manager, all they have to worry about is the physical aspects of the property, and the digital stuff gets handled automatically. Whether it's with AI, like whether AI responds to like, questions, answers, AI responds to touring requests, schedules the tour. They like if someone schedules the tour, all they have to do is actually show the apartment. They don't have to be picking up the phone and spending their time in front of a screen all day. You know what I mean? Because these property managers hate software. I'm gonna keep it a buck.
Yeah.
Property managers hate software. Like the most seamless experience is the best experience for them. That's like how it should be. So we're trying to make it the most hands-free so you can keep your phone in your back pocket.
Ah, hence the name.
So- so-
Okay. I love
so-
I love how you inserted that into your okay. No, that's
Yeah.
wonderful. I love the pitch. That's amazing. I love that solution, right? Like, trying to uncomplicate the process for property managers or, those who own multiple properties, right? Because frankly, they're not gonna have the time to like, monitor every single transaction and making sure that, the security of everything is tight and whatnot. But nonetheless, there are, I, you've named like a bunch of ethical issues that can be exploited, right, for benefit of the wrong person or party. What would you say is the most common ethical issue as it stands right now? Whether through back pocket or just the industry as a whole.
To be honest, we've actually been trying to avoid the really sensitive ethical issues simply because like those issues are very deep rooted. Like in housing, some of like the most like there's some crazy stuff that happens in housing, and like price fixing, like that, like tenant screenings, like
Right.
discrimination lawsuits. Like I had to do fair housing training because one of our clients said, "Hey, like you should know about the fair housing laws and stuff like that because like if your AI slips up and we get sued for something like this, you're gonna need to know this. You're gonna need to know like what are protected classes, for example. What are um what can't you ask in a tenant screening interview? Like you can't ask about race, you can't ask about like children and stuff like that. You can't ask about like age. You don't want to like there's like certain restricted classes that we can't talk about. And those like discrimination suits, there's been like class action lawsuits against these big people. So those sensitive industries, like it's our job to make sure that we make AI that suits like that is accommodating of those sensitive classes. And this is like where all of like AI is like this is where AI has to be trained properly. It has to be trained to know what those protected classes are and answer tenants' inquiries, like exactly how, because we're ultimately like the communication, we're on the communication side. So we're like very client facing. We have to be like on top of our stuff. We can't have half baked AI going out into production and talking to tenants. Like there's like a lot of laws and regulations that go into who can like communicate with tenants because housing is like is one of the most like basic human needs. You know what I mean? You have a roof over your head, you have food on the table, and you have like I think like those are honestly like like a bathroom. Yeah, like those are that's involved in housing. But like it's like if you're messing with that, like it's
Yeah.
very important that you actually know what you're doing. That you're not like, just like, oh, and someone sends like, oh, hey, they tell you, hey, your lease ends on this day. You need to be out on this day. There's a lot of regulation in this field, and it's intentional there to stop. Like those laws are there to protect tenants, and like we see, like after doing like a lot of this research, we kind of understand that like the places that you can and like what you need to avoid and stuff like that as we get forward and try to get more legit, like, and as we're like going through these steps, we're like realizing, oh, there's like a lot of stuff in here. Luckily, like things like we don't really do, like we let the humans should be negotiating the really sensitive stuff, things like price, things like some of those like policies, like, oh, you can do this, you can't do this, noise complaints, like those human has to be in the loop. A human has to, like, be involved in that. We're just automating the simple stuff like scheduling a tour, like property information, like what are like what time to what time is like are things open, like, or do you guys have this on premise, do you guys not have this on premise, where is like this place located, stuff like that. So like I like we still think a human needs to handle those really sensitive
Right.
issues.
Yeah, human intervention absolutely needed, especially when there's AI implementation and anything to do with tech in general. Human intervention is pretty critical. So I think we kind of started talking about corporate accountability and misconduct cases. Are there any particular examples of corporate misconduct that come to mind that's you know that kind of rocked the industry a little bit, or um, any famous examples that you guys can share?
I think the most, I don't know if this is considered or falls under corporate misconduct. It's more like an ethics thing. It's just where the money, you don't expect big tech to be writing drone software. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I think that's the biggest ethical issue is all of this AI is powering what, right? Like you can use it to do what we're trying to do, which is make people's lives easier, and boost productivity, or you can make drone software. You know what I mean? Like I think that's the biggest threat that AI has right now, right? I don't think it's so much gonna, oh, it's gonna take everyone's job. Like I don't think so, because people were saying that when like like a one of the lowest level programming languages came out, like they were like, oh my god, the programmers are gone. Well, no, they're not. It's just different, right? So it's just different again. Um, but this tool is so incredibly powerful that it can be used and is being used in the wrong ways, right? And I think that's extremely dangerous.
No,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's very
And
dangerous.
so what would you say, Talha, like, individuals or even corporations can start enabling more accountability and advocate for more accountability? What are some of the steps that people can take?
I would say, like, I feel like I'm not too qualified to speak on this, but I'll just kind of give my opinion or perspective. I feel like it's difficult when, like, it kind of seems all doom and gloom, like it seems like the world is controlled by people that it's out of our control, right? Um, I remember hearing once there when the Italians were colonizing the Libyans, I believe. There was a sheikh and somebody, and they threatened to bomb the sheikh or like have planes or something. And the sheikh says, "Of the plane are the planes above Allah?" And then the people, like the sheikh's followers, were like, "No." So he said, "Why should I be scared?" So when we think about like what it seems like, oh, we have no control. Well, who's more powerful, right? Yeah, I think the biggest thing what we can do to kind of hold accountability is just change the scene, right? It's not like the scene how it is right now. Like I feel it feels like it's not going to change because it feels just so dystopian. The fact that like that drones decide who to kill who, like like what? That's crazy, right? And I think as Muslims, we have so much one responsibility and two potential. Like we should be like the conversation. We should be in having the conversation. And I'm sure we do a little bit, but I feel like more often than not, you see like um, directors of companies who have Muslim names and they don't really care. It seems like they don't care. They're getting protested by Muslims. You know what I'm saying?
Right, right.
So why isn't it like I feel like we're the ones who need to be up there so that we're so valuable. Even, I mean, I'm not saying like everyone should. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that Muslims need to be in positions where they are so valuable that if they were to leave, it has very big damage to the company. You know, you work for a big company, and like, you know, a lot of, and Muslims are in those positions, but sometimes they're not willing to sacrifice their, you know, their paycheck, their comfort, um, for what they believe in and what's right, right? So I think we need to be in those positions so we can actually change the conversation, right? Because right now like, it took what, 2 years since genocide started. Now people are like talking and talking, and now it's even more, right? But we're in that position now because we see how weak we are. You know what I mean? And it, you know, people are just getting away with this because we're not part of the conversation. We're either not saying anything, or we're just quiet, you know, or we're not even trying to say anything, or we're not trying to change anything. Um, yeah.
On on that point, I think people also underestimate how much power they truly have. I think people underestimate how much, like, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given every single person a certain amount of power. Like, just a, like, He has given us free will. We know we have gotten free will. We know that the things that the actions that we take will only be held liable for those. If there's like large scale like corporate scandals and stuff like that, like I'm very much like, what are we gonna do about that? But if like I personally in my work am doing something, then I'm like, oh, okay, this is in my hands. I need to stop doing this thing. You know what I mean? And then so often we like, there's this thing, intrinsic locus of control and extrinsic locus of control. These like psychology concepts, and people have proven that, or like psychologists have proven that people who think they have an intrinsic locus of control, that there are like things that they personally can do that will like shape the things around them, live much happier lives, live much more engaging lives. They're much more attentive in their like work. They're much more proactive about the things that they do. These people, and like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives that to us when like He says like uh like when everything like with the fact that we have free will in and of itself, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is gonna ask us about all of those things, and we're gonna have to like account for all of the things that each one of us personally did. They're not gonna, like, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not gonna ask you, oh hey, why didn't you stop like this billionaire from like, you know, price fixing Chicago's rent? He's gonna ask you like, did you, like, you had the power to build ethical software? Did you do that? You know what I mean? Like he's gonna ask you like, you had the power to pray in your workplace. Did you do that? You had the power to, like, you know, back away from like shaking your hand. Did you do that? Like there are things that are in our control, and I think that a lot of Muslims need to notice that their locus of control is bigger than they think. And when people live their entire lives like, oh, I'm gonna get a job, someone else is gonna give me my paycheck. It's up to my boss to give me my money. It's up to this X, Y, and Z person to save the world. It's not up to me. Like it's up to like, you know, it's up to big tech and stuff to stop bombing kids. You know what I mean? Then it's not up to me. It's like, what is up to you? You know what I mean? Like ask that question. And when you ask that question, you're like, oh, there are things that I could be doing. And that's all, like you just have to take those small steps like over time. And who knows if they work out, but like you can at least say that I did my part. When you're asked like iqra kitabak on that day, like read your book, like, and then like on that day say وَقَالُوا مَا لِهَذَا الْكِتَابِ لَا يُغَادِرُ صَغِيرَةً وَلَا كَبِيرَةً إِلَّا أَحْصَاهَا. When you're like said like, oh, like everything is in this book. Like there's not a single thing left out of this that like small or big. There's not a single thing. When you're asked that on the day, like you need to be like, oh, like I did this, 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 and this. This was in my name. This was done in my name. Like I did this, I did this, I did this. This is all I could have done. And like, and if you're satisfied with that, then like, then you can be like, okay, if I died today, like, what would you be comfortable reading that book? And the interesting thing is, we are still writing that book. It's not that like the book is closed. It's like that we're still writing that book. So that's one of the things, and it's like a
No, that's
very
wonderful.
like profound concept. That's like in the intrinsic locus of control. Like that's like something that relates directly with this. I thought that was a really cool thing.
It is cool. You know, these are great reminders, and you know, it can, like you guys have mentioned, it can feel very overwhelming because you know, obviously we don't control the outcome, but you know, if we can commit to our little efforts that we put into every single day, you know, the sum of the parts together will create hopefully the intended outcome that we all want to see, inshallah, in the near future, hopefully. So for the sake of time, we're going to shift over a little bit to, any resources or advice that you guys want to impart to the listeners. So someone who's interested in entering property management or even AI, what's your advice into breaking into that particular industry or that line of work? What would you guys, where should they start?
Just start learning. It's so easy to learn stuff. Like, you don't, I don't want to be that guy that says you don't need school, but like, it's like Affaan said, it's what are you willing to invest, right? Like, you can put 4 years if you want that curriculum and that structure and you think that works for you. Like, I think that worked for me. I would never be able to do get the same education by myself. So for me, it was worth it. But just search, right? Like, if you want to get into AI, I mean, I just started looking into all this agent programming, agent stuff. And the moment you start trying to solve the problem, you realize how underdeveloped the field is. And I kind of sitting thinking like, oh, like, my whole life I wanted to actually work on something new. I felt like there was nothing greenfield to work on. Everything's like, oh, they already figured out systems. They already figured out distributed systems. No one's coming up with like anything. They're just keep building the same thing, different flavors of the same thing. But this is brand new. Like there's all these startups doing evals. Evals is just testing for agents. When I was working on our product, I was sitting there like, okay, well, how do I test this thing? And then I read about evals. I'm like, oh, well, this is like a whole thing. There's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's tens of startups just on evals, right? So, and all I did was I started working on something. So if you're bored, if you have time, just start searching. Well, what my uncle tells me, he's like, um, for some context, I'm not the kind of person to like come up with crazy ideas. That's this guy. That's Affaan. I I don't come up with ideas. Like I feel like I'm not in that sense. I'm not very like imaginative, I guess. But the more you learn, kind of like you'll just have a shower thought, like, what if I did this? And it might be a great idea, and you just don't know, and you just work on it, right? You just keep working on it, and it's so easy. Like, just go to ChatGPT and be like, hey, like, I have this crazy idea. I don't even know where to start. Where should I start? And it'll tell you, like, it'll just give you an outline. Um, just use it as a wall. Just talk to it. That's what I do all the time. So that's what I would say if you want to get into this field. But like generic advice, I would just say, like, in a time that everything comes so easy, pick a difficult good habit and just stick with it. Like, just if it's small, just pick something that's like inconvenient,
That's
right?
a
And
great
yeah,
advice.
these
Yeah.
things aren't actually inconvenient. You know what I mean? Like if you decide to pray 2 rak'ah of nafil like before you sleep after Isha, that's not inconvenient, but like it seems inconvenient, right? So in a time where everything seems inconvenient, pick one thing that's inconvenient and just stick with it, right? Like I found that doing that just helps you so much, because it's when people think about like, how do I grow? I went to halaqa last night. They were asking, like, some of the kids were asking, how do you like, what do you switch out for Instagram and TikTok and all these different apps? And one of the things I was thinking at the time was that, like, if you pick literally one thing, right, that you're just going to stay consistent on, you'll solve the problem, right? Like, you can't cold turkey on anything. It's just not how the humans are designed to just go cold turkey and just become like beasts overnight. Nobody does that. They pick one thing,
Right. Yeah.
they pick one good thing to start doing, and they pick one bad thing to stop doing, and then they just keep doing it every day, and then a year later, history's history, right? That's what I would say.
It's very good advice. Genuinely very good advice. And I do something very similar as well. Like, you can't just like quit things immediately and just like leave nothing in that void, because sooner or later your habits are going to creep in and fill that void again. Similarly, I think I would say listen to people. That's like kind of my whole job, but genuinely, one of the most prophetic qualities of the Prophet ﷺ was his empathy. And Sheikh Mikhail Smith has a very good book on With the Heart in Mind. It's like the emotional intelligence of the Prophet ﷺ. And it's about listen. And then he has a follow up to that. It's called When Hearing Becomes Listening. Both phenomenal books. And when you listen to people, entrepreneurship gets really easy, because people are complaining about products all the time. People are constantly complaining, dude, this is broken, this sucks, I hate this is a problem in my life, like I hate this. Take one of those and try solving it. And then sooner or later, you'll find other people that have that problem, and boom, you have a business. Like, it's like it sounds so simple, but it's so true. Like I think so few people listen to other people's problems because they're too busy solving their own. What's crazy is actually there's like, I don't know if it's a hadith or if it's a saying, but I don't want to misquote. But it's basically like Allah takes care of the person when he's involved in the affairs of someone else. So it's kind of interesting how that kind of ties into entrepreneurship a little bit. So I would tell you to like listen to other people's problems and try to solve them.
Well, those are great advices, mashallah. Thanks so much. I definitely will implement those advices in my personal life. So, for the sake of time, I think we're about to, wrap up. But for our listeners who want to connect with both of you, because mashallah, you guys have so much knowledge to impart and to advice that you guys have thus far have given to the audience. How can people reach out to you guys? So what's the best way to reach out to both of you? For
Honestly, LinkedIn, hit me up on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
It's
I
like
think
literally my name,
that
Affaan
is
Saadat.
that's the easiest way. Yeah, LinkedIn. Just look up my name.
Hmm.
You'll see
LinkedIn.
my
Or
Okay.
face.
Twitter. I have like one called AFAN Builds, like with a Z. So Twitter
Okay.
works too.
Okay.
Even I didn't know that. Yeah, LinkedIn. I think professionally, like if you want to reach out, LinkedIn, it's the easiest.
Okay, awesome. All right, so for the listeners watching this, they can reach out to Talha and Affaan for, through LinkedIn for any professional advice or maybe even mentorship if you guys are up for that. But before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience? Perhaps any way to support you guys, what you're doing, support Back Pocket AI, anything?
If you know property managers or leasing agents, please reach out to Affaan Saadat on LinkedIn and send him a message. Don't reach out to me. Talk to him. Talk to him. Talk to him. He'll talk to me after.
100%, that's my job.
All right, property managers, you heard him. So reach out to Affaan or maybe even Talha. Who knows? He'll connect you back to Affaan. And help, inshallah, the collaboration will produce a lot of great stuff, inshallah. So Affaan, Talha, thank you both so much for sharing your journey with us today, with the audience. The insights and advice that you guys have imparted definitely resonate with our listeners. At the very least, it resonated with me for sure. And I know so many will be, inspired by your path. So jazakumullah khair.
Wiyakum.
الله بحمده سبحان الله العظيم.
All right. Assalamu alaikum.
عليكم السلام.
Thank you for listening to the Tread a Path podcast. You can find all the resources our guests mentioned in the Tread a Path archive in our website, coffeeproductions.com, along with the links to connect with our guest speakers. If today's conversation inspired you or helped you in your own professional journey, we'd love to hear from you. So please leave us a review, share the episode with someone who might benefit, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. May your treaded path be blessed and full of wisdom. Assalamu alaikum.